Well, good morning, everybody. It's a surprise, surprise. You know what? Yeah, it's a surprise recording here by me that I'm going to have to post to YouTube and to Twitter/X or X/Twitter. And this is part of some of the issues that I've discussed and pointed out. I'm going to give you a little bit of information about the Idaho 4. Most of you may be aware of it. There'll probably be some of you that aren't. But some time ago, in a motion to the court, a statement by the defense was very clear, and it had stated that there was no connection between Brian Kohlberger and the victims, electronically or otherwise. Now, that's an important statement. And the reason it's an important statement, you can witness in the hearing from the other day about whether, in fact, this guy who's doing the survey is breaking the gag order. Okay? And in that hearing, Bill Thompson tells us that information is false. The stalking of the victim or victims. So confirming what Ann Taylor said last year, confirming her analysis that there is no connection to Brian Kohlberger and the defendants, electronic or otherwise. And by Bill Taylor using that as an example and telling the public now that there is no stalking, right? That it's false. Now, folks, what do you think about those 12 drives that he took? Because it was those 12 drives that were used to make the accusation that he stalked them. You see, oftentimes, more often than not, information that we're given is interpreted in the worst light. And people are so quick to accuse and condemn and damn others, okay? Because that I don't know why they do it, but that's just what we do. To me, it's a flagrant act of ignorance. I've said for the longest time that Mr. Kohlberger's alibi was going to be the police work that's being used to accuse him of committing the crime. The very police work that was put in that PCA based on theories that were then extrapolated either in the writing of the PCA, and here's a theory that was presented in the PCA that you people take as a fact, and you condemn Brian Kohlberger. And here's the theory. It's been my experience as a law enforcement officer for so many years that criminals often turn off their phone to mask their location prior to committing a crime. On its face, that statement is factual. I suspect that officer's experience is being described as accurate as anybody could describe it. And I accept that accurate depiction of his statement. My question is, who witnessed Kohlberger turn off his phone to mask his location to commit a crime? And in fact, now that we know he wasn't a stalker, those 12 other trips that he made do lend to an alibi. They do not lend to him stalking. So this is what causes people to go down different roads, and they believe information. They believed what that cop said. They didn't think it through. And when you deal with information and data, you're supposed to think about it, not believe it. Just because criminals turn their phones off to mask their location prior to a crime does not mean that applies in this case, unless a witness can corroborate, or a action that the man make can corroborate that his intent for his phone not reporting to the network was to mask his location to commit a crime. You must show that, you must be able to prove that. To allege it doesn't make it real. And that's what happens to us all the time. The interpretations of some of the statements made are designed to show you this person's guilty. That's the state's job. What our job is as citizens is to take that information and make sense of it. And the fact is, Mr. Kohlberger's phone did not report to the network from 2:47 a.m. To 4:48. Yeah, 4:48 a.m. So for about 2 hours, his phone didn't report prior and after the crime. Now, that has been twisted to show that Mr. Kohlberger he committed the crime during that period of time. And many of us have asked the question, well, why did he take his phone? And then the other story that come out, the police telling you they're they're searching the pings and tracking his phone, shows them in that area at similar times of the night. Okay. In similar areas, driving around 12 times previous to the crime. And that to you was interpreted as he stalked them. Well, this is why it's so ignorant to accept explanations at face value and start pounding on people with them. And then witch hunting these people, whether it be Kohberger or whether it be the people connected to Sebastian Rogers. It's as if people have not been taught how to think. All they can do is believe. Well, this is consistent with another case. This is common. And that may in fact be true. The fact that criminals turn their phone off to mask their location is probably as true as the sun comes up every day. I'm not arguing. I accept that as a fact. But in the description of that fact, where is it saying a passenger in the car or some other means proves that Mr. Kohberger turned his phone off before committing this crime? That's the part that you're supposed to consider, folks. You're not asking conspiratorial questions. You're asking the state to show that this individual did that with the intent to commit murder. Or in fact, forget he had an intent to commit murder. Show me the evidence that he turned his phone off to mask his location. Show me the proof. His phone being not reporting to a network is not evidence he did that with intent to do anything other than turn his phone off. And that's the only way you can accept it. In all fairness, folks, being fair isn't picking a side. Being fair is asking for people to show their work. Show me how you come to the conclusion he stalked. And the fact of the matter is, everybody's conclusion that he was a stalker were the 12 previous trips, of which I've said the whole time before I think anybody else said it, that Mr. Kohberger's case, his defense and his alibi is going to be using the exact paperwork, the exact people, and the exact information that they're levying to him to charge him is going to be the same information that exonerates him. All the videos of cars you watch will show Mr. Kohberger's car was not there, that you cannot place Brian Kohberger at that crime scene on Linda Lane or on Queen Road or King Road at the time of the crimes. I'm confident in that because Ann Taylor has told us that the FBI relied heavily upon a car going the wrong way at the wrong time. Okay? Which is a statement telling you that Brian Kohberger is probably going to accept and admit that that car going the wrong way on the wrong street at the wrong time. Dollars to donuts, Mr. Kohberger is going to state that was me, that the car the FBI identified. The images in the video used to identify a Hyundai Elantra, okay, that was heavily relied upon by the FBI, Mr. Kohberger will admit and accept that, in fact, that was him driving that car. But be clear, folks, the defense has stated unambiguously that that car was going the wrong way on the wrong road at the wrong time. You see how that becomes Mr. Kohberger's alibi? The FBI agent is now Mr. Kohberger's alibi. That's how this case is going to play out. Because, in fact, my personal assessment of what I've seen is simple. If the Linda Lane footage is accurate, credit to the people like Gitta who studied those vehicles. And if that Linda Lane video is absolutely a depiction, as it appears to be, a depiction of the accusations in the probable cause affidavit, the times, the types of cars, the movements of the vehicles, if Linda Lane is accurate, the car that drove around the building and parked at the time they claimed Kohberger was the one that drove around the building and parked. If, in fact, that video is real, that car is not a Hyundai Elantra. The car that drove around that building and parked is not an Elantra, and that video on Linda Lane is exculpatory evidence, just like the statement of Ann Taylor telling you there's no connection to Mr. Kohberger. Those 12 trips are now exculpatory for Mr. Kohberger, in the effect that Mr. Kohberger has a habit of doing this because he doesn't sleep good at night, as a neighbor below him will testify. All reasonable explanations to the information given to the public. And yet so many of you would rather convert those statements into egregious acts by somebody and then attack, defame, demoralize, and hate, literally hate people Because your interpretation was those 12 trips prove he stalked. And there was no evidence to support that. And I hope that you now stop and think. The way you're analyzing things is based on you believe information. You're not analyzing it. You're not thinking about it. You're just believing it. And that's a dangerous road to go down. And we've got to get off this road, folks. Information needs to be parsed. It needs to be understood. It needs to be explained. And there's an innumerable amount of explanations for why I got up and walked out to my mailbox. There could be 100 reasons for that, more than me just getting the mail. It may have, and I'm not going to get into them, but if you think about it, you'll see that. Was my intent to get up and go to the mailbox? Did I have to go to the bathroom first? Was I getting up to get something to drink? Did it just dawn on me to get the mail while I was walking by it? There's 100 different ways I ended up getting my mail. And exactly why, we can't tell. Why did he drive 12 times? We don't know. But the idea he did it to stalk, we could pretty much put that to bed. The idea that he had any connection to the victims, I accept Ann Taylor's explanation that there is no connection. And the connection that all you folks that are so hell-bent on bashing this guy into the dirt, the only connection that you ever had that Kohberger, or the only idea you ever had that Kohberger had a connection to the victims were those 12 trips. He was stalking them. That's not what those 12 trips show. Those 12 trips can also show exactly what I'm telling you, that he was in the habit of doing that, not to commit crimes, but just because he couldn't sleep. That explanation is as reasonable and acceptable as he stalked. Suggesting he stalked, I think that's a bridge too far. But doing it and not allowing yourself to consider that he didn't do that, that it's highly possible Mr. Kohberger simply drove around at night, I think not seeing both sides of the story and not landing in the middle. He's innocent until proven guilty. Until this moment in time, I didn't know if he stalked. I was thoroughly, based on the facts that I had read, I am pretty confident that that was not the stalk. The neighbor below that said he vacuumed at 4 a.m. kind of solidified that for me. Okay. So the guy was a heroin addict. There's no proof of that, but there's been widespread dissemination of that fact. Well, sleeping issues are common after people come off of drugs from heroin. You may have sleeping issues the rest of your life. That's just the way it is. So, these accusations in the PCA, you can't believe them. You have to question them. And then you have to wait for the truth to come forward. And then you have a better, clearer picture of what's going on. And in this particular case, Mr. Kohberger, I think, has been falsely arrested. I think it was done through an honest mistake of tunnel vision. I don't believe police set this guy up. I don't believe the police are criminally trying to throw this guy in. But what I do know is that once you get into the system, they have to find a result for you. And they'll stick with you even when they know they're wrong. And we've seen this play out across the country. It's happened to me personally, where they won't let go of a charge. And they want to keep dragging you back into court, back into court, back into court. I went to court 12 times during my divorce on an issue, okay? Where I was, anyway. And then the 12th time, I finally stood up and just let loose on the court. And the judge looked at me and smiled. And he goes, I could see you're frustrated, but you're right. You're right. He goes, and this is the last time I'm going to ask you. And he looked at the prosecuting attorney. Do you have case law to show that his argument is no good? And a lawyer wrote him anyway. And the district attorney had none. And he said, well, Your Honor, it would take time. He goes, well, we've had 12 court appearances over 9 weeks. This is it, he said. I'm case dismissed. And he just threw it out, as it should have never been brought to begin with. But my point is, you never know until you know. And to make these determinations that the professor in the Kansas City 3 is the culprit, the hospital's the culprit, and you go after and viciously attack them. Brian Kohberger, because he's been charged, he's got to be the killer. And not given the information that's been released to the public a fair review and an open mind that what could very well have happened in that courtroom, what could very well have happened is he could have said, here's what Bill could have said. Your survey released a fact that's covered under the gag order. And that fact that Brian Kohberger was stalking them is part of this case. You see, he didn't say that. He said, you gave people false information, because what was being pumped in the media was that Brian Kohberger was stalking the victims. That's what we were being told, right? That's what a lot of you people have determined that he was doing because of the 12 car trips. And Bill Thompson is telling us that that's false. Brian Kohlberger did not stalk those kids. So, that's it. I'm done. Everybody be good. I hope this gets some views. It's a recording. I'm not even sure how to post it up on any of these platforms, but I'm going to give it a shot. Thank you.